So the other work, we press green,
Speak.
we'll go through and then turn it to red.
And you can leave it on the table or you can hold it closer up. Tends to work as a holding mic than a desk mic. I apologize. So for our people at home that are tuning in, I just want to say welcome and thank you for joining us tonight. This is a part of our membership of our subcommittee for facilities. We are meeting tonight to have an organic conversation and interview process with our top candidates for the role of GC and hopefully upcoming facilities upgrades and improvement. So we're first meeting here with Johnson Controls. Does the board want to go around the committee and introduce themselves?
I'm Bob Barker, school board member.
I'm John Chimpa, school board member and part of the facilities committee as well as budget. And my family's been in Hooksett for a long time. My father was facilities at Auburn Village School, which is a school next door to us, part of our SAU 15. So that's why I'm interested in this project.
Bill Rierick, superintendent, SAU 15.
Ben Lloyd, principal at Fred C. Underhill School in Hooksett.
Gary Gangen, resident, Facilities Committee.
Jillian Godbout, vice chair of the school board and chair of this facilities committee.
Dean Farmer, maintenance director, Hooksett School District.
I'm Dean Angelides. I'm the account executive for Johnson Controls Sustainable Infrastructure, covering Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont.
I'm Matthew Glazer. I'm the development engineer for that same area.
Hi, Victor Holt, Johnson Controls, construction manager, Northeast Region.
Okay, I'll start with our first question. We are just going to go in order that is on the sheet to try to make it easy for everyone. How would you describe the collaborative dynamics between your project team and the design team? Have you worked together on previous projects? If so, what were the outcomes and lessons learned?
Thank you for that first question. Our design team is actually sitting in front of you. The project team is local. I live in Laconia. Vic lives in Ackworth, and Matthew lives in Portsmouth. We're all within an hour of Hooksett, so we are locally based. This is Matt. This is actually Matt's first project with us. Matt just joined Johnson Controls June. So Matt's been with us for just about a month. We do take a collaborative approach to everything that we do, and we work very closely together. My direct manager actually started up here, and he was a resident of Derry. He's moved at this point. He's in upstate New York now, but he does spend a lot of time here. When I started up here 8 years ago, he was my development engineer. So we take a very proactive approach and a collaborative approach to everything that we do from beginning to end, and that is very much inclusive of the customer.
Just everyone to jump in, but you mentioned that you are the design team. I'm sorry. I got to get used to this thing. You don't do all disciplines, though, right? Johnson Controls doesn't do civil. They don't do architectural, I'm assuming. They don't do structural.
No, where we would need to bring in engineers if we had a requirement for a civil or structural.
Who would? I think part of this question is asking that. Who is that part of that team that you would bring in to do that type of work?
We have a structural engineer that we've been working with for, I want to say the last 10 years. His name is Glenn Thomas, and he is a certified PE. And, again, whatever we would need in terms of architectural or any other type of engineering, we would certainly collaborate with anyone that you have a relationship with. Johnson Controls, our division is 100% agnostic.
Well, I understand that. But this is a design build, right? The school, I don't think wants to take the responsibility to have to supply the contractor, the design build contractor, with engineers, right? Or they don't want to be the ones that recommend this. They want you, because as being the design build contractor, this is not an ESPC contract. This is the design build contract, two different animals, right?
Well, I think you
So
can,
we would expect JCI, or whoever's awarded the contract, to be the people, the point of contact that's going to supply these people to, for Dean, for example, for recommendation and why you would recommend them. And I think that's what the committee's trying to figure out here is who would you pick? You have that breadth behind you in this region. I realize you guys are regional now. You're not local so much. You have a local office, but you spread, the talent out. How would you go about doing that to keep the town and the school department comfortable that this is going to go off without a hitch? That's their biggest concern, right? And obviously, the town wants to hear this as well. You want?
Well, we also, we have a number of kind of engineering teams that backstop all of our projects as well. And they kind of are brought in whenever there is a more specialized degree of expertise required. That would be Ken, right? What's his name? Ken, I forget his last name, but still new to JCI.
Yep.
But, and then we also have principal development engineers like Anthony Marciano used to be. We have people like Pratik. They will come and help the more junior developmental engineers to ensure that we can execute the project to a high standard.
The development engineers aren't architects and electrical engineers. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're mostly mechanical engineers, right? As I understand it. So who are the ones that fill in the rest of those gaps for you guys? Because you can't do it, right? You can't stamp the drawing that says, your roof is okay. You're not the architect that did that, right? So you need an architect.
We'd bring the appropriate disciplines to the table
Okay.
and own that process.
yeah, the goal is to mitigate 100% of the risk to the schools. While this does stack up like a design build, we also are looking at the energy aspect of this too, because I think that from a funding perspective, we can do a lot to offset bond cost with guaranteed energy savings. So I think it would be a marriage of both disciplines in looking at a project for Hooksett schools.
We'll talk later about some other stuff, but I'm assuming with the contractors you bring in that don't have the scope of work and the services that you can deliver, they also adhere to any open book policy pricing, any of the fee structure, capped markups that we would expect that were written in the RFP. So there's going to be that kind of ability.
They would definitely adhere to the existing process and the existing set of guidelines in terms of pricing, open book, and any other specified pricing. And we've done this quite successfully, across the New England region. We've worked on projects for as large as the second largest city in Maine, city of Lewiston, all the way across to the other side of the territory, where we've done not only Rutland City Public Schools, where we've done 3 phases of energy work and 1 phase of ESSER-funded work just recently completed. But the 3 phases of energy work that we've done there, we've reduced the total energy spent in the school by half, measurable and verified.
I have the next question. So can you describe a significant challenge your team faced on a prior project? How was it resolved, and what changes you implemented as a result?
I think I have an excellent example there. Just recently, we had just recently won a contract for the city of Rutland, Vermont, and we had gotten to terms and agreement, and the contract was signed on September 30th. Part of that process, the city itself had applied for a internal grant that was provided by the state of Vermont on an energy resiliency program. They were applying for $500,000 in funding there. Unfortunately, they were not awarded the funding. We stopped the project. We went back and retooled the scope of the project to accommodate the loss of the $500,000 worth of funding. We went back through and started all over again at the committee level, went through and gained agreement at committee, and then ultimately brought it back, an amended contract back before the city alderman, and that was about 2 months ago, where the city alderman voted to proceed and go forward. It was a challenge, but what we did was we worked very closely with the mayor, his assistant, and the department heads of the city to make sure that we made accommodations in scope that would cover and make sure that the project fully cash flowed so that it was budget neutral. But we did it with the recommendations brought forward by the internal department heads of the city. Because again, this project is yours. Design, build, or energy, this is 100% your project. We're here to facilitate the best possible outcome. We managed to do that for the city of Rutland in that instance.
How do you select and manage subcontractors to ensure high-quality performance and accountability throughout the construction process?
I think I'm going to leave that one to you.
Yeah. A lot of it's based on past performance. I'll stack it up this way: is A-tier contractors is one that I'm looking for, based on their deliverables throughout past projects. And B-tier contractors, if they're not available, then hold them to the same standards.
Would you have, off the top of your head, any contractors that you would say that you use more than any others? I mean, maybe that some of the board would know.
Lighting contractors, for one. We've done several projects with them. I have zero problems with them. By the time it bubbles to me, it's already been taken care of.
I think you asked specifically if,
The name of the contractors, you're asking me?
I mean, something that maybe the board.
Synergy Lighting? Synergy Lighting?
Energy lighting?
Yep.
Okay. What about
We also-
what about mechanicals?
Currently, I'm doing some good work with Mountain Air Mechanical. They're
Mountain
based
Air.
in Vermont.
They're out of Vermont.
Same strategy, minimize any change order, any blowback. By the time there's a problem, it's solved.
weatherization too.
Welcome.
I'm going to take a different spin on the questions that I'm looking to ask.
A good question. First of all, I think the key piece is communication throughout this team. Does it line up with what you're looking for? Is it something you want to pursue? And then quite simply, it would be a change order through the normal process.
And in terms of, a lot of that might be based on unit price, not necessarily performance guarantees. In lack of grant, so is that also part of the scope is if we start looking at things that, in essence, could start to add cost and could start to add scope creep to be able to get the performance guarantee that you're shooting for, but doesn't necessarily match the perfect unit cost you're looking for. There's that ability to work through that.
Sure. Again, I think communication is the key. Start right up front with communication, back and forth.
And as far as the funding sources that you were talking about, we do understand the challenges of funding sources, grants, rebates, and things of that nature in New Hampshire. We would also be talking at the federal level as well. We believe in leaving no stone unturned. And again, I agree. There's challenges in the state as far as that goes. You don't have an efficiency Vermont or an efficiency Maine. There is really no efficiency New Hampshire. You're working really separately with the utilities, and the utilities that we've worked with all over the state, from Eversource to, Liberty is another one that we've talked to. They all have the ability to do custom projects. So that's something that we'll work very closely with them to make sure that we capture every possible dollar the goal is always the same for us. The more rebate grant money and if we can capture federal money as well, the further it extends the ability to add scope to your project.
My turn. What is your quality control process, and how do you ensure compliance with design specifications, safety standards, and building codes, particularly when construction occurs near an active school environment?
That's you, sir.
Yeah, thinking about the response here. It's a multi-point question. Standard is pretty across the board, held to all construction safety standards out of the gate, minimum OSHA 10, OSHA 30 for all of them. Quality control process, monitor your contractors, make sure they're adhering to what the specifications are, what the design is. Again, communication is kind of key at the internal level and then at the external level.
Does JCI have a standard quality control program? Construction driven?
Not that I'm aware of.
Really? They don't have anything. Okay.
All right, next question. What successes have you had in supporting school districts through the public approval process for construction projects, like bond votes or any type of community engagement efforts? And can you share specific examples? And you shared a little bit of one before, but that was more engagement with the city. Or was there any community outreach?
Yes, actually, we do a lot of community outreach. I have not done the bond. I've not been on the bond side because, again, my goal is to always try to build a budget neutral project for my customers. I try to avoid the bond as much as possible because I know bond equals cost and equals tax implications. So wherever I can drive down the necessity for a bond, because I think we all understand here from the design build aspect, you're talking about replacing roofs. Roofs don't have an energy savings component that you can quantify to put into these types of projects. So those would, end up being a capital expense or possibly a requirement for a bond. But if I can, or as the team can, if we can build a project that minimizes the bond requirement, we'll definitely do that. Now, as far as public outreach goes, that's something that we've done extensively all through our projects. Recently worked on some projects up in Maine, up near Lewiston, and a small city called Wiscasset, where we did a number of community outreach to the local citizens, and that included an energy fair that they sponsored. We are all about a commitment to making sure that there's transparency so that not only you as the customer understands what's happening with the project, but your constituents that are going to vote on this later down the road have to be educated in the same manner. I think that's sacrosanct. It's something that's critical in what we do. So whatever is required in terms of community outreach, we're very much committed to. And as a small aside, just one thing I did want to point out that does separate us from our competition across the board is that we're very much engaged in STEM and your students. We take the same regard to educating your students as you do. And our thought was with this type of a project, we could create a real-time STEM project from kindergarten all the way up through high school at various levels to get students engaged in what's going on in their schools, teach them environmental stewardship while we're doing the design and build out phase of these projects. And then with the older students, the students that are possibly looking to go into different careers and maybe looking at engineering or other types of avenues that might involve someday them getting into this type of business. We want to show the example of what the financing looks like and how these things all work together. And we would love and cherish the opportunity to work in concert with your facilities and your staff and your teachers to bring that forward. And as we develop and build a project, have these kids learn along the way how the real world works and what it takes to actually do these types of projects.
You know, Dean, that's a great idea. I mean, you guys have done a lot of schools, obviously, in the area. Can you tell us an example of where you may have done something like this before?
I tell you, I have not done we just did a project out in Fall Mountain Schools, which actually just happens to be Vic's kids were put to school, went through Fall Mountain Schools. And we did spend the time trying to educate as we went along, especially with the LED lighting concepts, because we did a fairly expansive LED retrofit there, where we did actually run into situations where we had certain students that had an affect due to the change in the lighting. But Vic worked very closely with principals of the schools to make sure that not only did we provide the best possible lighting, but we also educated the students at the same time about how we do these projects. And again, it's a very collaborative. I would say my best customer for that is Rutland City Public Schools, where doing 3 phases of energy work there, we spend quite a bit of time, not only doing things in and around the schools, but around the principals and the students simultaneously. We actually are the first energy services company to build a solar carport at a high school in Vermont, which we have at Rutland High School right now, and it's running successfully. We run monitors in the school that show real time what the real time energy values of what's being saved and what's being generated. Through those panels, and we do that that's a standard practice that we do any place where we install, whether it's local municipal or whether it's K through 12.
Worked for many years at Northern Power Systems up in Barre, Vermont. Turbines they manufacture in Bedford County schools. I know we've done some projects, done that exact same thing, taking the curriculum aspect of the angle to the school, timing and everything else.
Yeah, I just think it's a tremendous opportunity to get students engaged. I've been one to say for many, many years now that if you look at the median age of skilled labor in the United States, median age of skilled labor right now is around 56 to 58 years old. We are literally a generation away from losing skilled labor, from losing electricians, plumbers, carpenters, woodworkers, masons. And these are all excellent opportunities for students that are interested in maybe going into business for themselves at some point, or have an entrepreneurial approach to the way they want to go through their late adolescence into early adulthood. I don't think anything should be taken for granted at this point. And I encourage kids that college is important, and it's an important step, but there's a lot more out there than simply just going to college. And it's great. I think we all had a great time in college, but again, I went to culinary school. I'm a culinary school graduate, actually. 4 years of culinary school, 3 degrees, including 2 associates and a bachelor's of business science. And I tell you that education at Johnson & Wales University in Providence had a lot to do with my maturation process and getting me ready to go out and face the world. So if I can pass that wisdom on to the next generation, I would love to do that. I would love to engage with the schools and see about making an educational aspect out of this project, along with the good work that we're trying to do to improve the infrastructure and the learning environment for the students and the teachers.
Okay. What is your experience with long-term capital improvement plans?
We work very closely with our customers. For example, I'm going to go back to Rutland City Public Schools, because we've had it's been 10 years of energy work there. And we do work closely with our facilities folks. Vic, on my right here, has over 30 years in construction management. And that includes working with folks like Dean and other facilities folks on how to do capital planning and how to prepare. Once we go and we've done an infrastructure improvement project to a school system, the work isn't done at that point. I think you have to always be planning on aging of equipment. The projects that we do may not encompass all of the aged equipment in the facility, COVID offered us an opportunity. Actually, the silver lining to that dark cloud was the ESSER funding that came out. And it was interesting to us that when we started looking at projects to help schools, Rutland came to us first and said, we've got a $14 million ESSER allotment. We're going to carve out $4 million, and we want to retro commission the BMS in our schools. We want to replace aging equipment. We want to go through and make sure everything is designed and functioning the way it was originally intended, and where we can make improvements, we'll make improvements. Well, I'm very proud to say, and Vic's responsible for this, that we ended up driving that project closer to $5 million, with the schools adding their own capital in the end, and they did it gladly, because as the CFO of the schools, Ted Plemento, said to me one day, he said, "Look, I'm getting $4 million worth of work. I'm only adding another $500,000. So I'm basically getting $5 million work for $500,000 capital commitment from the schools." And he went into his own budget, and we grew that project out of necessity. And again, it was a collaborative effort. We worked very closely with the facilities director there. His name's Glenn Scott. And we worked very closely with him, and we took his ideas and his concepts, and we turned them into reality.
All right, last but not least, looking over your cost and markup fees. Generally, they look fairly reasonable considering, the market. Usually, we're looking at 10 and 15, and you're 10 and 7 for your overhead and profit. And your labor and equipment is a little bit higher by 2%. The labor cost, is that 12% based on your fully burdened rate?
Yes.
Okay, so fully burdened plus 12%. That's what you would charge per thing. And the equipment and materials. So you have subcontracted labor here, and that goes back to what we talked about before, right? Because you guys aren't going to do it all yourselves, right? So those contractors are going to be your local contractors that we talked about. Okay. The other thing in here is you have an audit cost of $24,914. Generally, a performance contract doesn't have an audit cost, at least an upfront audit cost. It's usually rolled into the project.
It is.
Right?
It
So
actually
I'm
is
just
rolled.
curious, why was that stated here?
Because we were asked. We were asked
Okay.
to state a cost for it, so we didn't want to leave that blank.
Okay,
But we do want you to understand that there is an upfront cost for doing that. And the only way that cost would ever become applicable would be if we did the audit and we did not get the contract. We would look at some type of we're really looking at a
well, isn't
small.
that fairly typical that if you did the audit and you couldn't find the savings anyway,
No, it's.
that would be on you, but if they found the savings and decided not to do it,
Right.
then they'd be on them.
Yeah, if we got down to brass tacks and we put the contract in front of you and you voted not to proceed, we'd have to recuperate some
Right.
cost.
I
And
think
that's
fair.
actually, I mean, we're really talking pennies on the dollar as far as that goes.
Yeah.
It's a fairly low cost for an audit.
Yeah.
But again, and I've found that 10 times out of 10, we're folding that cost into the project.
Okay, all right.
Can I just a follow-up question? When you say not given the contract, what happens if you do the work, we go to the voters and the voters say no? And the project's, it's in New Hampshire, we have to go to the voters to get approval for the bond. So we go through all the process. We like the plan, we want to do the plan that you provide us, but it fails at the ballot box.
If it fails at the ballot box, then we're back at square one again. It's not, we're,
You take the ride again, is what you're saying?
yeah. That's the tightrope that I get to walk on, and my management doesn't love it, but I would tell you directly that we're not in this to just do an audit for our customers.
Put together a good project.
Yeah, we'll assemble a good project. We'll follow your dictates, because again, the constituents are your constituents. Your constituents better than we could possibly ever. We read all the local trades. We read the local newspapers. I constantly stay informed as to what's going on in terms of what goes on in the schools, and try to have relationships with Dean and with other folks in the school system. But at the end of the day, you're going to point us in the direction, the most successful direction to get this across. Whatever it takes to engage all the stakeholders, that includes your constituents, we're committed to that 100%.
Yeah, that's, that's, I think the point I'm just trying to make sure, clarity is, obviously these projects sometimes take multiple voting rounds. They don't always pass the first time of the ballot. And again, the voters don't want to be paying constantly for audits every year, coming back around. They don't want to be paying for stuff for costs. Because again, that same project could be pushed forward as soon as it passes, let's say 2 years down the road or 1 year down the road. You're not making major changes. So that's where we just want to make sure that, that the contractor we're selecting through this process
Yeah,
is willing to take that ride, knowing that sometimes these projects, especially since ours is reflected 3 different school buildings.
right. And I agree with you, because I don't think we're,
And the majority of the funding is going to come under taxation.
Right.
Because we know there's not a lot of grants. Like we're all transparent about that. We know there's not a lot of grants in New Hampshire. We're not from the estate unless it comes out of taxation to property owners.
Right.
That's the biggest thing we want to try to help protect.
what, yeah, I could tell you the route that we would definitely want to take is as far as that goes, the TELP route, tax exempt lease purchase route, because again, we can get a great, depending upon the interest, the credit rating of the schools, we can get a solid interest rate. We have excellent, being Johnson Controls, being as large as we are, we do have excellent banking partners that are invested in the local area. So we can bring to you the lowest possible interest rate and the lowest possible cost of money. And again, what I'll try to do, or what we'll try to do as a team, is to build the projects out of TELPs and get as much squeezed into the TELP as possible, so that whatever falls into a capital component, if you decide to go the bond route, then we go to the bond council. We have a relationship with them as well, and try to make that number as small as possible. That would be my strategy to be successfully build a project here. I'd like to take as much energy savings as possible and as much grant rebates and, whatever I can grab and scratch and claw to get, we'll get. We have an excellent grant writing team out of our home office in Milwaukee that does a great job. We will scour through the DOE and through the federal government to make sure that we leave no dollar uncaptured. So it's a process, and it is a little bit like playing the lottery when it comes to the federal government, but we've been playing the lottery with them for quite a few years.
Okay, so our last bit, we've gone through our questions. Our last bit is just double check timelines. So kind of want to review with you the timeline we're hoping to work within and make sure that something is feasible for you guys as a company. So we are interviewing our top candidates this evening. We are going to go to the full board, school board, next week with our recommendation so that they can yay or nay it, and and so then we can contact the person we would like to go with and get going. Because the hope is that we could have a company come in and walk through our buildings, hopefully before the kids even get back in, so that you have the freedom to get through the buildings and kind of come back with a priority list. Because as much as we have to go with our taxpayers, as much as we'd like to replace everything, that's not the point of this. The point is what's the necessity, what needs to be replaced. We would like a priority list of things in all 3 buildings. The board needs that. The numbers for October, that's our budgets, we're in budget season at that point. We would like the subcommittee to have some public interest, public nights with the community to get some interest, to show them the different, maybe different scopes and sequences we could do of the said projects. And we need to have kind of everything locked and loaded for December. Is that a timeline that you guys could adhere to?
That's absolutely fine. We will be as nimble as you need us to be. We will move as quickly as you need us. Johnson Controls, and again, it's the benefit of a company like Johnson Controls, a $6-point-something billion HVAC company that has a division that is built specifically to do these things for our customers. Your timeline is our timeline. We will hit your deliverables. Once you say go to us, we come back with a development agreement that mirrors those timelines, and it echoes everything that you want and when you want it. And then we will hit the ground running immediately. And again, the team is local, so it's not a like we're shipping people in from different parts of the country to get this done. We have the expertise. I think we have some of the immeasurables, the immeasurable qualities as well. And I also think that we offer more than just a design build or an energy energy savings performance contract, and that we can fully engage with SAU 15 and Hooksett schools to not only make the quality environment better, safer, more comfortable, enhance the learning ability of the students, enhance the comfort for teachers and administrators, but also engage for them at a level of continuing education and truly turn this into a project that could be a great teaching case and a great curriculum for students to maybe take a path to say, hey, maybe I want to be at Johnson Controls or Siemens or Honeywell and do these types of things. And I would love to see 30 years from now a student that graduated from SAU 15 from Hooksett Schools building a $100 million project to invigorate and rebuild an infrastructure in a town or city or anywhere. I just think it's that's the quality of work that we do. I think it's good work to be done every day.
You have any questions for us?
The only question I have is I want to make sure that we've answered all your questions. If there anything that comes up, Dean has my contact information. It's just coincidental we both happen to be named Dean. So yeah, it is. I can't forget that one. But I just want to say that from the start, since Dean's contacted us to come out and participate in this, it's been a pleasure speaking with everybody, meeting with everyone, and we are hopeful for a mutually successful outcome. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so now we are here with EEI. We'll go around the table and introduce the committee, and then we'll have you guys introduce yourself, and then we'll go down the questions. We each will take turns asking questions, going down the list, and the idea for tonight is just to have some organic conversations with our top candidates to help us nail down which one we will be going with.
I'm Bob Barker, school board member.
John Chimpa, also school board member.
Bill Rarick, Superintendent, SAU 15.
Ben Loy, principal at Underhill School in Hooksett.
Gary Gangan, Hooksett resident.
Jillian Godbout, vice chair of the school board and chair of this committee.
Dean Farmer, maintenance director, Hooksett School District.
You got just press it.
Should we just leave ours pressed because we're going to be, no.
Probably makes more sense.
Mike Davey, I'm a partner with EEI.
Stephanie Smith, I'm a project manager here at EEI.
Awesome. So we'll start right with number one. How would you describe your collaborative dynamics between your project team and your design team? And have you worked together on previous projects? If so, what were the outcomes and lessons learned?
So I can just speak to EEI and our philosophy as a company. One thing that is unique about us is a lot of companies are set up where you have an energy auditing team, an estimating team, an engineering team, a project management team, and then a post-construction team. Our philosophy is we want the team that's going to be doing the projects to be involved the entire way through. And I am a partner in the company and would be involved in both the estimating, designing, meeting with the budget committee, school board members, creating marketing outreach. And what's unique about us is as the owner of a local company, you'll have access to me anytime. So I think we have done some previous projects with the district, and I think your facility director knows he can call me anytime, whether it's Sunday, nights, weekends, we're available. And I think where you guys go to high school, Pinkerton, Stephanie has done all their capital projects for the last 3 years. And can you speak to that a little bit on how that process goes?
Yeah, there's a team that's sort to work over there, so overseeing the projects. I'm also a Pinkerton graduate, so it's nice to see building the future for the students there while they also built my future. It's a team to work with through the facilities directors to the administration team. It's a great group. I think also being involved in the community. I'm on the board for the Dairy Demons Youth, which a lot of Hooksett families are involved in. So which just give me the ability to also be able to build a relationship with the athletics department as we work a lot with the community. So it's nice to see things from the construction side, but also see people's outview on it from the community side, being a part of the community.
And one of the things, like right now, we're in the middle of air conditioning the gymnasium building at Pinkerton, which is the largest gym that I'm aware of in New Hampshire.
Correct.
It has basically 3 full-size basketball courts with dividing walls. So for them, they wanted to do a brand new boiler system, and the boiler system was going to be $1.6 million. Stephanie and I did an audit, and we said the entire heating load of this building is the gymnasium and the ventilation load of when you have that filled for the championship game, which Pinkerton is always in. And what we said is, you really don't need this massive $1 million boiler investment. Why don't we put gas-fired units up on the roof and then add dehumidification? Because what Stephanie was telling me at prom, it's about 120 degrees at Pinkerton.
Yes,
And
it's very warm.
and so we saved them $1 million investment just this year, and we're putting the money into making the air quality and the conditions of the system better. They only had enough money to do 2 of the phases, so we developed a phased approach where we did all the ductwork this year. We set 2 of the units, which will meet the demand about 90% of the days. And we do the in-house design team. So Stephanie, our PE is my father, who's Joe Davey. Grew up here in Pembroke and worked on many of the schools throughout the state. So he's got experience. He designed also the successful project that we did here at Colley during ESSER funds to add dehumidification here.
Part of this question, I mean, unless, and I could be wrong because I don't know EEI very well, but you carry all disciplines within EEI?
We do mechanical. We have one in-house architect, and then we have an electrical engineer in-house. Structural, we outsource, but all the other resources we have in-house.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
The next question. Can you describe a significant challenge your team faced on a prior project? The second part to that question is, how did you resolve the challenges? The third part is, what changes were implemented as a result?
So we had a contract to do Sunapee Central Elementary School. They had, if anyone's been to Sunapee, they have a gymnasium building that's just the gym at the bottom of a hill where their high school plays, and at the very top of a hill, which is probably 120-foot elevation jump, they have an elementary school from 1928. So Sunapee had failed bond attempts since 1992 to try and improve that elementary school. They had 4 failed bond attempts, and they worked with every general contractor in New Hampshire trying to get a bond passed. They finally heard about us and said, we need you to get this school up to snuff. It had no ventilation, steam, heat. And so we said, hey, if we put a wood chip boiler at the base of your hill, it'll take care of the gym. We'll run it up to the elementary school, and we'll put in a silo. We'll have energy savings that'll help pay for the ventilation. And we then funded it with a lease purchase agreement that got the overwhelming majority of the support. So much so that after 4 failed bond attempts, the very next year, Sunapee had us do the high school, which passed on the first attempt. We also upgraded that school's HVAC system last year. So the big challenge on that one was when we demoed the oil steam system, we started building the wood chip boiler, and the silo, we had a silo that would store the wood chips. The manufacturer kept missing their ship dates, and they would said, okay, we're going to ship it in August. Okay, they missed it, and they had a story. Oh, there was a funeral. Then they said, the next ship date they missed by another month, and they had a different excuse. And then finally, it's October, and we still don't have the silo. Everything else is up and running, and the school district needed the wood heat to get the energy savings and for the design day. We did have a backup propane that would work 90% of the days, but we really wanted that for when the basketball's full on a cold day. So I finally talked to my operations manager. I said, we're flying out to Kentucky to find out what is going on with this silo. So we sent him out. He was okay with it because he got to get some Kentucky bourbon while he was out there. When we went into to the factory, we found a failing, dying business where the owner, there was some drug use, there was some divorce involved, and they had all our material sitting there, but they couldn't keep the workers going, and they didn't have the cash flow to get the rest of the material to finish. So we said, listen, you're in default. We can lien you, we can sue you, but we really just need the silo. And he said, we don't have the workers. So my reputation, all we do is New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine schools. I can't have a building with no heat. We sent our crew to the factory, learned how to do it. We put the system together and then shipped it to Sunapee so that they could get the wood heat in time. And we made a customer for life. It cost me $25,000 out of pocket that we just ate because I had already paid them, but I had to pay it again. But I just couldn't not have heat for the kids. So that was our biggest challenge. That was only 3 years ago. And it's kind of our outside the box thinking to make sure we could get it across.
Thanks, Mike. My question. Mike, how do you select and manage subcontractors to ensure high quality performance and accountability throughout the construction process?
I've been doing New Hampshire HVAC construction my entire career. Like I said, I grew up here. I know every subcontractor in the region. We invite only the best ones, and you don't just have to take our word for it. We've done, first of all, when ESRA came out, different districts were given different allotted money based on, partially on their poverty rates, and Manchester got the largest in this region, $30 million, and they selected EEI to manage the adding dehumidification and ventilation upgrades to 26 schools in Manchester. And we had the relationships with the best subcontractors, including Eckhart and Johnson, which is their headquarters are right here in Hooksett. They're one of our go-to contractors, and that have the capability to do it. So typically what we do in our process, we create a budget pre-bond or pre-vote based on our historical average and maybe one or two prices, but then we'll bid out the work if the warrant article passes to 3 or 4 qualified vendors typically.
Can I ask the next question? And if you were to get awarded the job and during that process identify any value engineering opportunities, how does that get reflected in the overall project or the total cost or what you're expecting out for us?
It's best if we can do that pre-bond. So you could do it post-bond, but usually communities bond whatever passes on the warrant article, and it's usually not great to have savings. You kind of want to do the project. The New Hampshire warrant articles are pretty specific. If you ask for $2 million, you pretty much have to go get $2 million. So the good news is we've already been through these buildings. In fact, the reason Hooksett knows us is when COVID came about, the business manager at the time, Amy Ransom, called me and said, we need to look at every air handler unit, make sure we're ventilating properly, make sure, and if this was pre-ESRA, and give me a conditions assessment. So we looked at every unit 4 years ago, and through that process, we created a list of which units were in the best condition, which rooms had the best air quality. And so then Hooksett School Board used that list to spend some of the funds to do some units at Underhill, some units at Colley, primarily the second floor classrooms, and add dehumidification as a test. That was an upcharge versus standard ventilation. And during that process, we met with the school board and said, there's cheaper ways to do things, there's more expensive. So we can do ventilation without dehumidification. In general, it costs more to do dehumidification. The electrical wires are bigger, the amp draw is bigger, but that's something that we can look at. The other thing is when we looked at Memorial School, which was a school that's over 50 years old, and when Memorial was constructed, it wasn't built to the snow loading that we have now. It also wasn't built to the energy code that we have now or the seismic code. So one of the things we talked about during that process is in 2018, New Hampshire introduced in 2022, New Hampshire introduced 2018's building code, which requires when you do a re-roof to increase the insulation level to current code, which is usually an R30. And then when you do that, you can build up more snow. So you now have a higher snow load you have to be aware of. And the buildings just weren't built to consider seismic in the 50s. So in an earthquake, you have these masonry walls and connected to the roof deck that when they move in earthquakes, which we don't get a ton of, but I actually happened to get one. I felt one this year in our office, and the walls aren't well braced at Memorial for seismic. So as part of our project, we were going to address those things. And we made a video. We have a structural engineer from Hooksett who addressed that. Maybe we could have communicated that better. Maybe the voters just weren't in the mood to pass the project last year. I'm not sure. But what's triggering those improvements is bringing the roof up to code. If you really want to be budget conscious, one value engineering thing we can do is what's called a recover or a go over the current roof and not there's an exemption where you just, where you cut away the membrane, put in a new membrane, or do a fluid applied over the existing membrane that would get rid of those structural requirements. Now, that's not, so if you want to cut hundreds of thousands of dollars out of the project, we can do that, possibly even $1 million. The question is, do you want to address the structural issues in the building, or do you just want to get a new roof? So that's we were trying to bring it up to code and address it last time. And the same thing, we carried dehumidification in all the units. We don't have to do that. We could, the other thing is like the boiler system, we carried 2 new condensing boilers. You could make the argument, why not just keep one and leave the other for backup? So it would be fairly easy to do what I'd call value engineering, or use alternate air handlers that are cheaper. We didn't pick the cheapest, but I will say I felt very, very good about the scope that was proposed, and I think if it had passed, it would have served you well. But the question is, were the voters just not in the mood to pass it last year, or do they want a cheaper project? And we'll work with you on figuring that out.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, everything you say, I understand it. I'm not sure they want a cheaper project. They want a less expensive project.
Yeah.
Okay. So they don't necessarily want cheaper equipment or cheaper material, but they want to believe that what they're doing has value.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that as a resident, I'm not sure they felt that there was the value, but the cost, the value just wasn't there for them, right? And nobody wants to pay more taxes, right? Unfortunately, death and taxes are the only 2 absolutes we have, right?
Yeah.
But I think presenting it to them in a way that doesn't look like your hands in their pocket, I guess is the best way to do it, is what they're going to, I think, what they're going to appreciate more. And because everybody's got a house, everybody's got a boiler, everybody's got a roof.
Yeah.
They all get that, right? That's understandable. It's the rest of it they don't understand.
And what I would say, there's 2 things. One, we can look at this roofing option with these other scenarios, which could bring the cost down and get a new roof, but not maybe address all the structural things. I would say it's my experience, it often takes a second time around to pass a project too. So sometimes there's a scenario that, hey, prove to us that you really need this. It's often been the case that the second time you bring the scope around, even if the price is relatively the same. I will say the Hooksett Budget Committee is pretty tough, and we did get this project by the Budget Committee with pretty overwhelming support. The school board was not a rubber stamp. They were unanimously behind this project last time, I believe. So I think what we will do, if selected, is lead that effort again. We're both involved in the community and make sure that any unanswered questions are answered. I do, if I recall, this warrant article got better support than almost anything else in the town, so including the budget. So I feel like there is support. We just have to get it to the majority support. And I think if it has to ring doorbells or, speak after mass at church, we'll be there and get this across the finish line.
I think just also one of the hardest things is that, again, with New Hampshire, we are not the friendliest when it comes to like energy rebates or programs or grants or other funding.
Yeah.
So for towns like Hooksett, it's really taxation is the main vehicle, whether you lease it or you bond it.
Yeah.
It's taxation on homeowners, and it can be a lot. It can be a lot, especially with the things that have gone up. So looking at ways to kind of better control that scope, better control that price, and justify it, I think is really important.
I think what I would pledge is we will bring you every option. I mean, there's the reason, and I'll just give you my background. I used to work for Procon. They're right down the street, largest general contractor in New Hampshire. And there's a reason that Candia and you guys the first time and Pinkerton goes to EEI when they have all these options is because we will vet every option under the sun. In Manchester, when they had their ESSER fund, we brought their school board 3 different solutions. Each would have improved the buildings. And I think there are lower cost options that could meet your needs and maybe get voter support. And anyway, so that's, I think that addresses it.
My turn.
Yeah.
What is your quality control process, and how do you ensure compliance with design specifications, safety standards, and building codes, particularly when construction occurs near an active school environment?
So with safety, we use Contractor's risk management to provide weekly safety inspections. I've used them my entire career. They're made up of ex-OSHA professionals, and Keene State has one of the most robust safety programs in the country. And so we almost are full of Keene State grads that help us with that process. We're very, very proud to be New Hampshire based and use our local colleges here for those services. All of our, one thing that I can't speak to other companies, if EEI is doing a project, there will be someone from EEI on site at all moments. So, and we can attest to that. When we did the Underhill project, we had a Hooksett resident, one of my employees, on site every day, making sure that the subs were following safety protocols. And we schedule work. I remember meeting with the administration, very, very intently scheduling work to stay away from the occupied portions of the building, cordon areas off. And for design standards, my father's PE license is on every drawing that leaves it, and he's not going to lose that stamp. So I also sit on the board for NASCO, which is a national organization of energy services company. I'm the only New Hampshire resident that's on the board of that. And so we're following all the changes in law, including with federal energy policy. And I get a firsthand view of that. And we don't just passively watch the laws. We're actively involved in Concord, making sure laws that affect contracting, schools, and energy policy are wise. So last year there was a bill that would have banned schools from doing lease purchase agreements. I personally led the effort to have that blocked. Previously we had Governor Sununu veto it, and then this year we were able to defeat it in the House. And so we're fighting on Concord to help make these projects more easier to pass in the communities.
What about your quality control part? We talked about your safety. What about quality control?
So are you talking design, or are you talking?
I'm talking about from design all the way through to.
Yeah, so for design, our quality control is we do energy modeling, then document review by our draftsperson, followed by a review by our PE. Everything we do in schools is submitted to the New Hampshire State Fire Marshal's office, which is a requirement many people skip, and then they're missing codes. We're hearing about that. When it's HVAC, we put in an analytics software, which is our proprietary patented technology that we give you for free. That just makes sure. So one of the things that Dean asked me last time is prove to us how well the dehumidification worked in classrooms. So we were able to show from our analytics the air quality and control standards at the upper floor of Colley and how it was significantly cooler, easier to work in than the lower floors or the gym. So we have this analytics process. We also we have a commissioning agent that commissions all the HVAC. We do a third-party structural steel and roof inspection to make sure you're getting what you paid for.
You've already mentioned a few items here about community engagement and outreach. I was wondering if you had any particular examples where you were successful in a bond vote or other community outreach for these types of.
Yeah, so our community outreach. So last year, for this project, we provided some materials for Old Home Day that were sort of banners and that were used, and then we created a video that was disseminated by the school board, by the PTO. I think this year, what I think we'll do differently if selected is engage the PTO. We're heavily involved in Hooksett Little League. I've been a coach in the league for years. I see the parents all the time. I talk to them a little bit about this. But I think there's an opportunity, and we actually sponsored a team this year in Hooksett Little League too. So you probably saw some EEI shirts out there. We will be, if allowed by the school board, we'll try and create just more awareness of what's in the project. I do think there are certain years where just people are going to vote no on it. I think I remember driving down the bypass or Hooksett Road and seeing a sign that said vote no on everything, it is sometimes hard to overcome that sentiment. Like, you know, when there's a red wave or a blue wave, sometimes there's really good candidates that just get washed away and really bad candidates that win because everyone's just voting. And I think we may have maybe hit a year like that. I will tell you, in Candia, our project failed the first time, and then it passed overwhelmingly the second time. And so we want to earn the chance to prove that the second time is the charm, and we will get this thing. I think the Candia voters said, like, prove to us that we really need it, and proved, and, you know, and so then when we brought the same project back, it did pass overwhelmingly.
What is your experience with long-term CIPs, capital improvement plans?
So for Pinkerton, which is, again, the biggest high school in the state, we just developed their long-term CIP at every single building at no additional cost. So we, at no cost to them. And then that CIP, what differentiates ourselves from what we typically see, a lot of times there's when we see CIPs, we see replace HVAC unit, 200 grand. What differentiates us is we try and give you all the options. So replace in kind, replace with dehumidification, replace with full cooling, install heat pumps, install energy recovery. And so it can be a lot, but it lets you understand how much bang you're getting for your buck and what the pros and cons, and even like things like geothermal or solar. We kicked around some of those things last time. I don't know that it's worth looking at. There's a 30% rebate for solar for projects that go online before July of 26. So would that make it more appetizing? Maybe. Geothermal, I'd say not, but there's a 40% rebate for that. So we definitely, and I will say, like, if selected, I think we put this in RFP, but we understand that Underhill probably needs some greater capital work than, let's say, Colley, than probably even Memorial does. We identified a lot of things, but one of the things is space planning and maybe a building aid application. We will include all that with no additional fee. So there's no fee for our audit. There's no fee for that long-term planning for Underhill, and then submission for state building aid. So there was only 3 applications for state building aid in New Hampshire last year, and EEI was involved in 2 of them, Woodsville and Windham. And I think the Underhill project would be an excellent candidate. That being said, there's also talk of pulling state building aid out of the budget. So I don't know how much work we did for free for nothing, but I do think we talked about it for Memorial. It would have scored very badly just because it was purely arguably deferred maintenance. They really, what's going to score well on state building aid is consolidation, better use of educational spaces, infrastructure. So even though Windham is a very wealthy town, they actually had a project that scored very well because they had a 1936 building.
I will, before I get into this, you already looked at this as a energy services performance contract, right? And it more or less failed.
I would say yes and no. There was, in general, I think some people may have like this clear line of energy performance contract versus construction project. We've always found that we price things pretty close to how a general contractor would. We think we're a lot cheaper than the way performance contractors sometimes view things. These are needed projects with some energy savings. I don't think there's a drastic amount of things we would do differently if you called it a performance contract or not. Like it has old HVAC units that need to be replaced. It has boilers that need to be replaced. The reason we didn't focus on the energy savings is we were adding dehumidification, and that was kind of what I had told the board at the time is the added dehumidification, which is a great thing, is gonna wipe out a lot of the energy savings from the roof insulation and the boilers.
Right.
So, if you strip that out,
You got nothing.
Yeah, so that's why we didn't call, but we didn't know
You
that.
don't need measurement and verification and that type of
No,
stuff either,
we-
that's all.
yeah,
You don't
we-
need long-term operation and maintenance
No,
either.
no, we'll strip out any pricing that you guys don't want associated with that.
All right, so it goes, questions about pricing, right?
Yeah.
So in the RFP, there was a page that asked for cost and pricing. It was essentially the overhead and markup.
Yeah.
Right. You didn't use that page in your proposal, right? You used a different one. So for example, it says subcontractor material. You didn't list that in your markup structure. It says subcontracted labor. You didn't add that in your markup structure. Materials purchased isn't in there. Equipment purchased isn't in there. So I guess my question is, why didn't you follow the sheet that was in the RFP?
Perhaps that was an error. In general, what we typically follow is, we use in general, an open book pricing model. I think we have in the past submitted to Hooksett, that shows that we make about 3 to 7% net profit is what we do at the end of the day. And we, with Manchester and Nashua, we operate fully open book just toward that. So I can send you a response with more detail to that. I don't have it in front of me, but I can send you that. But we're basically looking to make about 3 to 7%. So we, averages at 5 is what we net, and how you break that out. But that's where we're looking to be.
Gotcha.
And what we will do generally, what I heard from a lot of other school districts is they'll get contractors, a bond vote passes, and then they'll price it and say, oh, we can't afford this. We got to cut this out of the scope. Hollis did this, where they said, we're going to air condition the school. Then they went out for bid. They found out that they couldn't get what they needed, and they had to leave off half the school. What our model is we're going to single source it. We need to make about a 5% average margin. We'll be fully open book. We'll guarantee that price. So there's no change orders. We're never going to go. And if there's savings, we give it back to you. And we're fully open book the entire way through.
That's all I got. Thank you.
And lastly, we just want to go over our ideal timeline and make sure that that is something that you guys can fall within, the company can. Since we've used you in the past, I believe that this won't be a problem, but I'd like to go over it since it's a question I'm giving everyone.
Yes.
So ideally, you will make a recommendation at the end of the evening. It will go to the school board next week for approval. And then we're hoping to get our top choice in the schools before the kids come back so that they have free reign to get into all the nooks and crannies. We are hoping for a priority list, a scope of sequence of the buildings, with numbers no later than October, because we are actually hoping to do some community engagement nights where we can kind of show them some different options and get some buy-in, and get some more buy-in is nice, but really educate, right? Get way ahead of the deliberative session with this knowledge and information. And as you know, our time frame, December is the hard, we need to know what that bond's going to look like. Is that something that EEI can, again, make?
Absolutely. I do think what we need to do for you is really, whether it's with the full board or a working group, is really vet through these alternatives and make sure we can easily get the price cheaper, easily. The question is, would the cheaper project or less expensive, would that meet all of your needs? And are you okay with, because there's always, right, if you buy a Chevy instead of a Cadillac, there are some things you don't get. So,
But if you have a Chevy,
Yeah.
you're not going to buy parts for a Cadillac.
right.
Right.
Yep. And so what we can do is we will vet through those options in a transparent manner and say, are there things here, can we live without dehumidification in a single story building? Can we live without the structural upgrades? I wouldn't, but I would probably do that one because I know you'd feel bad if there was some type of collapse, right? But in general, the structural, I do want to be clear. The structural, we did a full structural analysis of your building. The low roof adjacent to the gym walls at Memorial do not meet a heavy, wet snow load. Does that mean it will definitely collapse on a huge snow? I'm not saying it will, but I know it does not meet what the state tells you it should. And to me, that if I was to do one thing, I would probably do that. And I know it's like not a sexy project. You're putting beams in a school, but it really should be done, even if nothing else gets done. This project started by like 4 or 5 years ago, realizing that almost all the air handlers were over 20 years old, realizing that the spaces were uncomfortable. The boilers are 20 plus years old at every school. And so the overall needs was 13 to 14 million. The projects, the board decided with this advice to go school by school. Perhaps that's too ambitious. Maybe we just deal with the boilers, the worst case things. They're cast iron sectionals. They're difficult to get parts for. But I will just lead this. Almost every school district, Dover, Keene, Manchester, Nashua, Portsmouth, turns to us to do just this work. This is all we do. And general contractors turn to us. So Harvey was partnered with us to do all the projects in Nashua where we were essentially under their general contract to do this work. So, I know this is like our second time around, and I feel like I always say an interview is like a date, and now we're interviewing with people we've dated before, so now it might feel like we're begging, but we don't want to lose. Like I feel like Hooksett. I worked here for 6 years. I played Legion baseball in Hooksett. My kids are on the Manchester North Hooksett Little League team. This is my community. I will stand by this project, and I will get this passed if you guys pick us. So I hope you'll give us the opportunity to do so again. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
anxiously waiting to see what's on the back.
Okay, so now we are going to interview Harvey. So again, there is a set of questions that we've used all night. We'll go around, we'll be going in the order on the sheet, but each of us will take a turn answering, asking the questions. And this is just in hopes to have an organic conversation, get to know you as a contractor a little bit better so that help us narrow down our decision. Okay, so if the board would like to introduce themselves or the committee.
Yep, I'm Bob Barker, school board member.
Hi, John Chimpa, school board member, and also represent us on our Hooksett Budget Committee.
Bill Rearick, Superintendent, SAU 15.
Ben Lloyd, principal at Fred C. Underhill School in Hooksett.
Gary Gangen, Hooksett resident.
Jillian Godbout, Vice Chair of the Hooksett School Board and Chair of this committee.
And Dean Farmer, I am the maintenance director for the Hooksett School District.
You guys also have microphones on your table as you go to introduce yourself. Just press the button once, it will turn green. When you want it off, just press the button again, it'll go red if it's off. You can leave it on the table or hold it up.
Supposed to say over?
Hi, I'm Doug Proctor. I'm lead architect with the Turner Group in Concord.
Bill Hickey, president with the Turner Group in Concord.
Kathy Misko, project executive with Harvey Construction.
Keith Kelly, director of pre-construction and planning for Harvey Construction.
And I'm Rob Prunier. I'm a principal and executive vice president of Harvey. And we're ready to go. I think, I hope.
Ready or not?
Yeah.
Okay, how would you describe your collaborative dynamics between your project team and the design team? And have you worked together on previous projects? If so, what were the outcomes and lessons learned?
I'll get started. Well, we specifically reached out to the Turner Group for this assignment because of past experiences that we've had with them, current and past. We just finished a renovation for Dartmouth Health up in Concord at 280 Pleasant Street. We're working on some schools in Nashua with the Turner Group. And we have a long history going back to working on Millipore out in Jaffrey together, as well as working for Pennachuck Waterworks. And we actually did the Pease International terminal together a long time ago. So this is a long-standing history, and as a result of that, we have, and I personally, I've been working with Turner for 30 plus years. Started in Nashua with the Nashua School District. We are intrigued by them on this project because of what they bring from an architectural perspective, as well as an engineering perspective. We wanted to kind of work in a unified group instead of bringing a lot of different consultants in. And Turner offers that to us. We've worked together on a couple different capital improvement projects. Obviously, we just mentioned a few, but in Nashua, I think they would consider those to be capital improvement projects. And you guys want to add?
Yeah, so Turner Group, we're a full-service A&E firm in Concord. The only thing we don't offer in-house is electrical, but we have subs that can do that. And I think, it was intriguing when Rob called and talked to us about teaming on this project. We, like Rob said, we've done a lot of projects over the years. They offer a lot more than a lot of other contractors do. And it makes for a great teaming opportunity because everything's pretty much under the roof that we can just kind of go back and forth and we can solve a lot of issues fairly quickly.
And if I can add, we've worked on a lot of pre-construction efforts together. So we're working at the cocktail napkin stages of projects to figure out what the needs are, what their solutions are, and how much they're going to cost, and what the process is to get through that renovation or construction. And I think we've done a real good job working together to solve our clients' problems and challenges.
Right. As an example, on the Dartmouth project that we're just referred to, we were pretty proactive in working with Harvey on that project, in that they needed to be in the building because a lease was running out. So we did we set up meetings every week. Kathy and Keith were both in those, and we just designed it on the fly and did the documentation on the fly. And I think that whole process
for that facility was probably 2.5 months in design so that they could get into construction and get them out of their previous space.
Part of this question is project team. This is a design team, clearly, right? So how do you go about choosing your project team? Who's actually going to do the work? I mean, you guys are construction managers, I get that. But how do you choose who's going to actually do the job?
Well, timing is one thing, experience is another. Kathy is our lead. She's our project executive on the job, and that's, she's done a tremendous, that one. She's done Kathy and I have worked together for decades, and her experience as a person, just being a really good person to work with, always is intriguing to me to introduce her to clients. Her school experience is remarkable, and she's had great success with those schools that she's done. And she gets along real well with the subcontractor base that we use, as well as the architects and the engineers that we work with. So that's the starting point. We find a leader for the project, and Kathy is as great as they come, I'll tell you. As we move down that list, we look for people who have that school experience, especially when we're talking about public schools. We pretty much we dip our toe into Maine a little bit, but pretty much everything we do is in New Hampshire. So I would say 90% of our staff has pretty good school experience. So our project manager, our site superintendents, we have a lot of options. Timing is a factor, as I mentioned, as I started. But we're pretty confident that we're going to be able to offer you really talented people, regardless of whether it's 26, 27, 28, whenever it might be. And we're not going anywhere, so we're here for the long haul. I think another important thing to note is that we employ in-house mechanical, electrical, and plumbing coordinators. So they're involved from the pre-construction stages all the way through coordination, installation, and commissioning. And that's important. That differentiates us as a construction manager. We also do our own in-house layout engineering. So we don't rely on the subcontractors necessarily to do the layout engineering. We do that in-house. Yep. Making sure that the corners of the building are in the right spots, that the site is all put in the right spots, make sure the walls and equipment is put in the right spots. So as a result of thinking this through, when we got the RFP, we put together a really strong group of people that I think would do Hooks It very well. And I don't know if you want to hear from the design team as well, in regards to how they put their team together.
Well, it sounds like they're all in-house for the most part.
Oh, they are. We are too. Well, so we self-perform work. If that's where you're going.
You do some, right?
General conditions.
Right.
So we do safety, temporary conditions, everything else we bid out to the market. And that's one of the great things I think we bring to you is the leverage that we have in the market. We've been around for a long time. Subcontractors love to work with us because we pay them on time. We make sure they get paid. We don't screw around with their payments. If we need 10 electricians at a project tomorrow, they come and we're ready for them. We're not screwing around with them. They're not coming and we're not ready and they have to go away and we don't get them back for 2 weeks. That's 85, 90% of the work is in that subcontractor market, and we get great coverage from the subs. I think that we're going to be able to get you the most competitive pricing out there, just because it's Harvey. And I'll tell you that the team that we've assembled, subcontractors really like working with this team in particular, so they're going to be even more motivated to work to get us the right pricing.
So when you go into the design, you go out of the design phase, I should say. So you have your design done and you're going out to bid, and let's say you go to, I don't know, 3 mechanical, 3 electricals, right? Does that come to the school board and say, or to the facility and say, this is who we've got and this is where you feel the pros and cons are?
So before it even gets to those 3, which I would actually suggest it's probably 8 in order to get 3. So that's the reality of the market is everyone's busy and not necessarily everyone's responding to RFPs or bid proposals for that scope of work. Before we even go out to those listed trade partners, which we have over 2,200 vendors, suppliers, and trade partners in our database, we're going to present a list to you of suggested and recommended bidders. Those are all pre-qualified. They don't get on our list unless they've gone through a check through our executive team. And then you may find some that you may never want to see in the Hooksett School District, and we'll make sure they don't get invited. And you may find some that aren't on the list. It happens. You know, we are all over New Hampshire, but the reality is that there's still some other vendors and trade partners that are out there that we haven't seen before. And we're happy to put those on the list. And that's before it even goes out of our office. So that collaborative back and forth participation in that bid invite is done with the board.
Right, so just for my own understanding, so walk me through this. So it's going to start with some level of audit, right, to see what the problems are, right? Yes. And then you're going to come in with some level of design, whether it might be enough to go out to bid or not, who knows, right? At that point, you're going to have to come up with a number, right? And this is about what we're looking at. Then you're going to finish design, then you're going to go out to rebid, so then you rebid, right? So does the school see both bids? They say, okay, we'll use, I don't know, electrical for a number. We carried $200,000 for electrical. The bids came in at $125,000.
Yep.
How do we not know each other?
Caught on.
So
Go back a half a step, though, in terms of our qualification process. We have a pretty strict qualification process that we go through with the subcontractors. Either we're engaging them and saying, hey, we'd like you to look at our work, but you gotta fill out all this information, tell us about your references, your insurance, your bonding, safety records. And then in the same token, when they come to us and say, we'd like to work for you, we're like, yeah, that's cool, but you got to figure this out first. When we go out, we'll go out to bid. We do in-house estimating. So our estimating is done in-house. When we set up these conceptual or schematic estimates, we're doing that in-house. We've got 7 people that are working full-time. That's all they do. We've committed to that. We were way ahead on the construction management side of things in New Hampshire, and we invested and developed our team for that, exactly that. You're not 100% sure what you want to do? Let us come help you figure it out. We'll tell you how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, how we should phase it. We go out to bid, again, after that process that Keith described. And we take in the bids. We can do it in a number of ways. We can do it, bring it to Dean's office and collect them and open up. Not a lot of facilities people want that to happen. We can we take them in and we put them on a spreadsheet.
Right.
And we go through the whole process, making sure that we have apples to apples. And then we bring that spreadsheet to you with their bids as backup.
That's based on.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right, so your process was right where we're figuring out what the problem is, then we're coming up with a solution and applying a conceptual budget to that, and that's where they're using their estimating.
Right.
Then they're going to go out to bid after we say, okay, this is the project, and then we finalize all the construction documents. Then they go out to bid with those.
Well, I think, and Julie, check me if I'm wrong, but within the school timeline, right? If you were to get awarded the project, then you would go to the budget committee with the Harvey estimate, not the bid estimate, correct?
Yes. So at the end, we'll go over
get the money.
timeline and if we can,
I know
if
that.
it all works. But you guys have worked with schools, so I'm sure that you're aware, like, I have to have a bond. I have to have a warrant article locked in because we would really like to have something on the ballot this year, but that's December. So we're only talking a few months away. And the problem with the bond, as you all know, if I ask for a certain amount, that's a certain amount. I can't say, oh, the project came in under, so now I don't need as much. I have to take that. So I think what our issue is we want to get the best deal possible, but like we need to be real upfront and honest and have a actual figure that's going to work.
Yeah, so so we've got a couple of things that we've talked about. This came out as a feasibility study, and we're prepared to jump on that as soon as possible. That's going to give you some parameters of scope, cost, and schedule. We're going to back up Turner's design with that schedule and that phasing, and then we figured we're probably going to be sitting down with you and starting to prioritize. And whether that's one bond, and I know it's easier to get one than to go multi-years, but we can do this. But the question then becomes, okay, how do we want to prioritize this work? is there one school that does Memorial need more than the other schools? I'm just hypothetically saying that. We understand the process and the timeline. To your point, we need to have a not to exceed cost with some parameters around design, what the scope is, what some pictures look like, what the site might look like, if we have to do anything on the outside of the building, for November, December, so that you can bring it to your finance committee. And then we're starting the campaign. We weren't sure if you were ready to push that this year. It doesn't make a difference to us. Know that, but we didn't want to push you either. Whether you wanted to do that for, I'm assuming it's a March, is it a March? Yes. A March 26 vote or a March 27 vote, or if you wanted to prioritize and go after something in 26 and something in 27. But you will get a not to exceed price based on a scope that you have agreed to with this team.
The board, to kind of clarify for you, what the board will be looking for are those options. We start doing our budget late October, but we can go November. I can't go later than the second meeting in December with the budget committee. I got to have it locked down for them so they know what we're asking for. Whether it's, make all the work at all three schools, or like you mentioned, to prioritize, the board needs that data in front of them. Again, earliest would be end of October, latest would be November for them, because they're going to need a couple of meetings just to
I was
process.
telling these guys earlier.
Yeah, but
So
that's okay. But
the hope
our
is that
timeline.
we have a recommendation for the board this evening at the end of all of this. The board approves our recommendation or doesn't next week. Then for us, it's a go. It's to try to get somebody in the schools before the kids come back so that you have free right, like you can do what you need. Not that I'm looking for you to come up with 1,000 things, but the idea is we need a priority list of what is urgent, because the whole idea of this, we've done this a couple of years. I'm sure you're aware. And it's not these wants, it's the needs. What are the needs? What are the priority of those needs? We're going to ask you a question about a CIP later on, right? So like, we're not just talking about the fires that we need to put out, but we need to do it smart and think about what are some maybe bigger things that may need to happen. So how do we sequence that? Then we'd like to have some public nights with the community to educate and engage them, and to kind of maybe have some different perspectives and get their feedback. Do we want to go one? Do we want to sequence? And then bring all of that, all of the work that this committee will do with our top pick and all of the timeline I just spoke about to the board so that they can put their final approval on it November, so that we can have something written up and approved for the budget committee in December. So that's the timeline that we're working under. And that was our last question, but it's got bumped up this time around, because we want to be upfront and honest. We want to make sure the company we pick can work in those time frames. We know that once it gets approved, it's probably going to be 18 months out, possibly before we actually get going, depending on schedules and whatnot, or at least that's been our past history, we've been told. But we would like to do something sooner than later. We know, or at least another company has identified, there are structural needs at Memorial. We have failing roofs. It's not that, things are 20, 50 years old. It rains on a non-raining day in Memorial School. They need to be so we know we have needs.
And we're prepared to be part of this team, quite honestly. Everything we do is open book, by the way. So every estimate, you might get more detail than you want, but better than less.
Yeah, to your question about how much do you see it all. I mean, it's all out there. It's the bids, it's the proposals. You can see as much or as little as you want, to the spreadsheet, to the 17 pages that back up that spreadsheet. Whatever you want to see, we're here to share it with you.
And we make decisions together. What's in, what's out. What you want to defer to see if you have enough money, and you can bring it back in. Value engineering is, I know, something that you're interested in, and that's something that we specialize in.
Yeah.
We develop, as we're going through the process, we'll ask ourselves questions about, could we do this? Can we use this different flooring? Can we use this different paint? whatever it might be, mechanical systems. And we'll keep track of that in a log that we share with you. And we tell you how much you can save if you make these decisions. Those decisions are your decisions to make, though. We provide you with the information and the smarts. You decide on what you want to do and what you don't want to do.
Yeah, it's a team effort, right? So everything that we find when we do our assessments, obviously Harvey will be there with us. You guys are welcome. Dean's welcome to come along. Anybody else is welcome to come along as well. But we'll come back and we'll share, we'll explain what we've seen, what we saw, what the recommendations are. And we can do it any number of ways. We've done a huge number of school assessments over the years, but we typically do, short term, 0 to 2 years. What do you need to do now? 2 to 5 years and then beyond. There's some things like you're saying, even if there's a roof here that you may need to do in 10 years, you're going to want to know about it so you can start that CIP process. So we try to break it out. We can do as many categories as you want, but really give you that information, not only what needs to be done today, but what needs to be done in the future.
I think it's also important to note that we're on the road with you in terms of selling whatever you decide to do. We're going to be there to answer the tough design and construction questions in the public, at the Rotary meeting, at the Kiwanis meeting, whatever it might be. It's important for us to be there with you so that the voting population can feel confident in what their vote is. And I think we bring that to the table, is confidence. We've been in the school market for a long time. We have a tremendous amount of successful projects that we've worked on. And I think people know that and care about the fact that school districts bring Harvey in, bring Turner in, because they know that they can have will gain confidence of people out there that we're doing it the right way, quite honestly.
I don't even know what number we're on.
Yeah, I know. We skipped to 8. I'm sorry. I apologize.
All right, so we're going to pivot a little bit here. Great. So can you describe a significant challenge your team faced on a prior project? And the second part to that is, how did you resolve the challenges? And the third part is, what were the changes that you implemented as a result?
Good one, especially
I've got a really good one.
All right, you start.
You want to talk about this one too? So Auburn Village School, we're working on a project in Auburn. And we'll talk about this later, I'm sure, under budgets and how we keep things within budget, but we typically do a long list of alternates. And one of the alternates was a baseball field. So the project was going really well, under budget. Let's add the baseball field. I'll defend the surveyor just a little bit, not too much, but so they had surveyed a nice flat area. So we're like, perfect place for a baseball field. Well, it was very heavily covered in brush. And they went out and cut the brush down. There were 3 leach fields that were 3 feet above the grade. So we had 3 big humps in the middle of our baseball field. So it's like, well, that's not going to work. So the initial thought was, well, we could backfill everything and bring it up to grade, but that was $1 million-ish. There was a huge amount of fill. That wasn't going to work. Yeah. So we said to the school, we've made an error. We're going to fix the error. So we went back, we looked at the design. They had designed 3 leach fields based on state standards. If you have flow data, you don't have to do that. You can design it to the actual flow of the school. It turned out the school needed 1 leach field, not 3. So one of the leach fields was kind of out of play. So we actually built a second leach field just as belts and suspenders so the school would have that. And what we went to the surveyor and said, hey, there's an error here. We've made a mistake. We're going to build a new leach field for the school. And the surveyor looked at us and said, I hope you're not talking about us and your we, because we're not participating. So it turned out the CM we were working with and the Turner Group split the cost for the new leach field. And the lesson we learned was not to hire that surveyor again.
The surveyor did participate in that they designed the new leach field that was taking place at one.
Okay, give him a little credit.
Yeah, give him a little but,
yeah.
I would like to add on that, just one of the challenges that we obviously have during construction, especially with schools, is schedule. So maybe not as dramatic a story as Bill's, but, but know that we pay close attention to the school year, the activities that can take place when students are here, when they're not, whether it be if there's abatement of some kind, schedules in order to get areas turned over so that the students can move in. Those things are super critical to us. We will work as a team with you guys and go through what the requirements are and keep our trades on task. That kind of ties into question 5, with keeping the trades on task with what they have to do, whether it be just as simple as through our weekly meetings, but also updating our schedules more frequently, and things like that, and sharing with you all that information and how things are progressing. And when we do have challenges with late equipment or something that happens, we talk through it together and come up with temporary solutions. We also, all the way back in the estimate phase, we'll take a look at, hey, we're going to need a lot of premium time maybe because of off hours or schoolwork or something. We build that into the program. We are thinking of all those things back in the conceptual time frame of what the things we're going to need in order to be successful as a team. So schedule is often a big one in schools for us, so I wanted to bring that up.
In conjunction with that, in a bigger picture, we like to build alternates into the design, because when construction has to start, it has to start. It can't have a bid issue where you're over budget or anything. So we'll add a bunch of alternates into the design of the project, and that way those items are priced, but they might not necessarily be in the project, but the project can start on schedule. And then as the project progresses, that the contingency monies that the CM is holding and probably yourselves are holding get released to afford those alternates. And that's the system we use at Auburn School, where we were able to pick up a lot of extra things. And we've done that successfully with every school project we've worked on. We have another one right now that came in $1 million under budget. That's because there are a series of alternates there, but those alternates will ultimately end up renovating the whole school, when originally all we were supposed to do was put an addition on the school.
And the nice part about that is you get bid day numbers. It's not a change order. It's a bid day number, which is important. It's a big difference.
Whether it be a lease or a bond, whatever mechanism we decide to fund this project, or these projects, there aren't many grants. New Hampshire's not friendly with energy efficiency programs. We're not that friendly with that stuff. So it comes all out of taxation. Taxation are the folks that are living in the homes, the residential owners and commercial payers that are here. And so, hearing that sometimes you can get $1 million out of the project is great, but we still got to pay for the bond at $5.9 million or $6 million. What do we do? How do you handle that when you're looking at it from a value engineering perspective? In terms of, are you giving those options up front so that we can start to see the other things we could either bring into scope if the bond's fully approved, or are you doing it up front so we don't have to worry about that at all? We just know what the exact cost.
Go ahead.
We do it up front.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, it happens at the pre-construction estimating, even on some projects at conceptual estimating, we'll actually start to develop those value engineering, and I like to call value management, because value engineering sometimes has the wrong connotation to it. It's truly understanding the value and managing it for the project. It starts as early as that first napkin sketch estimate and goes all the way through until we agree to a GMP, guaranteed maximum price, that we are going to be contracted for. Those values, to Bill and Doug's point, they're at bid day, which is the best time for you to be getting those values and those costs. We all know the stories about change orders, and there's never a deduct change order. There's always add change orders. The joke goes about it, but that's the reality of it. You're not getting a dollar for dollar. We don't want to put you in that position to have to find that $1.50 because it was $1 at bid time. So that's all happening during the pre-construction estimating, and even through into construction, where the operations team may have a conference with a floor vendor that says, hey, you know what? I just got this new product. It's not new to the world, but it's just new to me. And it's going to save you X amount of dollars, but it's going to give you the longevity or the less maintenance. So you're going to actually get operational savings from that too. So there's those opportunities that even happen during the construction operations phase as well. So it starts early.
Good decisions early, right? If
Yeah.
we make good decisions early as a team, hopefully we'll minimize that value engineering, but value management, I like that much better. But, it's something that's always out there that we're always going to look to do. And, if we're saying, okay, you need a new roof, we'll typically put together a spec for a new, say it's flat roof, low slope roof, we'll put together a membrane. We're not specifying what kind of membrane. We're going to give it to these guys and they can shop the market for a membrane that meets the specification. But there may be somebody that can come in with a certain type of membrane that will be more cost effective than the others. And, we try to keep it as open as we can.
And if we tell you, for example, the mechanical system's going to be $1 million and we go out to bid and we guarantee that in the not to exceed guaranteed maximum price. And we go out to bid and the number comes in at 900,000, you get that 100,000 back. Whether you put it into your contingency or where however we manage that is up to you, but you're going to know it.
Yeah.
And you're going to be the benefactor of that savings.
And that makes sense. And I mean, the reason I ask is because we need to get those questions. The questions aren't open book pricing because we have to be able to stand on and ask it.
Absolutely.
During the deliberation days and all the things that are happening, we have to be able to stand there and justify multiple questions from the public, but also we always get, why does it cost so much? We never get like, you know what I mean? No one ever realizes, well, you might have actually got it cheaper than it was supposed to be, but we always ask for that. So we just want to be able to stand by those numbers and do it ahead of time. Because again, with the bonds, once we've already submitted the warrant on the bonds are locked in.
Yeah.
That's what's still on the voters to make the final call.
And we'll be with you during those hard questions. That's part of my job here specifically is I'm standing next to you answering those questions in front of your community. That's my role.
And we'll be here as well, absolutely.
That's part of it because you're bringing us to be a part of your team as your professional advice. We're the boots on the ground, so to speak, relative to this construction industry and the design industry. We're going to feed you that information. We're going to be there to be able to provide that backup and that support.
Kind of another project that was it's kind of the reverse process is that we were involved with Hopkinton schools, in 20?
COVID.
Yes, that's right. We bid during COVID. It was awesome. But that was a reverse process where they said, we only have $10 million. We need to renovate and we need to renovate 3 schools and put an addition on the third one. So that's another process where you kind of engineer the work that you can do on each school based on the need at each school. And that one, again, we use the alternate process with that. And we're able to pick up every alternate. And actually they got 400,000 back from the construction manager in the end. But we were able to do, a new office and
Completely
four classroom addition, sprinkle the whole school for the elementary school,
Right.
and then renovate all the interiors of a second elementary school, and then we did labs and some other work at the high school and stuff. So that's another way to do it is you set your high number and then you got to back into it. So.
I think number 5 is still relevant. Yeah. That's my question. You didn't pre-answer mine. What is your quality control process and how do you ensure compliance with design specifications, safety standards, and building codes, particularly when construction occurs near an active school environment?
You want to start with the code part?
Start with code. That's
Yeah, I deal with the code part.
Yep.
Yeah, and I also deal with the specification part. They're sending me submittals and I'm making sure that it matches those specifications along with our team.
Yeah, but obviously, we have to design to the code, ensure that everything is done to the code. So that's, as the drawings, as the specifications are developed, we ensure the code part.
That's also part of the evaluation process when we're doing the feasibility analysis of all the schools, is we're also looking at building code throughout.
Right.
So.
And then we give the construction manager a code-compliant set of drawings, and then they
go building.
So, our team will deal with quality control throughout the whole process. So we use an awesome software tool called Procore. As Doug mentioned, we do a submittal process, which ensures the products that we're buying and deliver to the project meet the specification and what we purchase from the sub. We don't want to cut any corners or allow the subs to do that. When the materials come to the site, our superintendents on site check those materials and make sure they comply with what's been specified. So we just have that standard process with how we make sure things are happening. Certainly we have regular weekly meetings. We do pictures of all the details and things that are happening. We would walk with Doug and any of the design team to go through any details or questions that we might have to document that things are being done properly or caught quickly if there is a concern. As far as safety goes, we do work with Contractors Risk Management. They come in and do monthly safety audits, or more frequently if it's necessary, depending on the type of work we're doing, if we feel that we need that. So our superintendents are responsible for the safety on site, and when the trades come in, they all do safety orientation for Harvey, specific to the job, specific information about that. So it's not just giving everybody a certain template, it's specific to the projects. So all the workers on site are aware of our safety program. We know we do, like I said, that third-party inspection to make sure everything's good. Our guys take the utmost pride in their work. I have worked for other construction managements and firms, and this is why I love Harvey. And our superintendents take pride in their work. They want to make sure they're doing a quality job, a safe job, and take pride in getting it done on time. So they're really the boots to the ground, but we support them. This Procore software tool has punch list sections, and we can document and take pictures of punch lists. Doug can sign it off. We can close it with a picture. It's all documented. So sometimes our project managers and assistant project managers can go out in the field and help with those kinds of tasks as well. So those are the types of things we're doing to ensure quality.
You want to talk a little bit, Kathy, about that line between school activities and construction activities and how you make sure they stay separate? How's that?
Are you picking on me?
No.
No, certainly we will develop a logistics plan along with the schedule that will show phases, access points, where our contractors are allowed to park. And that is part of what they get at the safety orientation. You're expected to park off-site over here. You can only use these doors. Obvious things like no smoking and things like that on campus versus what we're able to do over like a summertime break. If there's no activities in the school, we can be, more invasive with if we needed cranes or, parking and different situations. But it's everything as simple as where are we putting the dumpsters and our trailers to where the cross traffic won't be, because there won't be. You can't have the cross traffic, and that's obviously very important. And we put all that in our contract agreements with the subs as well, just so they know when they're bidding, we can put those things together too, sort of like Keith was mentioning. We kind of have to have a preliminary schedule so the subs know their expectations for, is this going to be a 6-month job, a 12-month job? They have to know that when they're putting their number together. And they have to know where they can access and where they can't. So that's why we end up all working together to come up with the plan for how it's going to get built, not just what is it going to cost, how long is it going to take, can we meet this time frame, how can we accelerate it, can we work multiple areas at once? So those are the sort of things that our team will be talking about early on, so that the subs have the right information to bid. You can't just give them a set of drawings and expect that they're going to have the right number, because we may need it done faster.
And it's important for you to know that logistics plans that we come up will be specific to each school and will be developed with the administration of that school to make sure that everyone's kind of cool with what is happening on that site. And to Kathy's point, that gets included, whatever we develop, it's included with the bid documents and subs so that they have a full understanding of what their responsibilities are on site.
And also sometimes sharing with the principals for, parent drop off and pick up and those sorts of things. We have to be able to communicate both ways, that where we are and we know, where you need to be and where we have to stay out of. So that's very normal for us to come up with, parent drop off type plans that could be just simply handed out to all the parents. So.
I'd like to answer question 2 and 5. So regarding code review, I sit on the fire control board with the state at the state fire marshal's office. So if I did something against code, it's going to look really bad on me. So I try to keep myself aligned with that. In regards to number 2, the way that came into play at Auburn School, and Bill might remember this, is the whole sprinkler issue there. And I don't know if you guys have been in the school, but it has a cistern that's in the middle of the school. It's a very decorative tank that sits up in the stair.
That's one way to describe it.
Right, yeah. But the issue there was that the cistern is not big enough for the school. And what was triggering that was the stage in the school. So through discussions with the state fire marshal's office, we said, okay, is it a stage or is it a platform? Because there's there's different classifications for that. And the state was willing to say, we can classify it a platform as long as you're not storing anything on it. So once we did that, the quantity of water storage went back down to the original cistern, and we didn't have to add anything, because we would have had to probably get rid of that one and do something totally different outside and add a fire pump and all this other stuff. So there's those kind of discussions are able to happen, you know, if we ever had an issue or anything like that.
Did we answer the quality control question? I mean, we could go on for hours. Yeah, I know. I knew that would be a good moving on. Yeah.
So you've somewhat pre-answered this about how, like, do you have an example of any time that you had to do community engagement, especially if it's around a bond vote, and trying to inform voters so that they understand what the options were, maybe what we're choosing to go with and why, and maybe even laying out a little bit more of the longer term plan?
I can start anyways, in that it'll go back a little ways, but it was kind of the formation of how we approach bond campaigns. You may have heard of Bill Ball before, Ball Field in Exeter. Well, when we built Exeter High School, we had to go through a significant campaign prior to that bond vote passing. So Bill Ball and I went on the road, and when I say Kiwanis and Rotary, I mean it. We were at the breakfast places having coffees with people. We were at houses late at night, talking about what the project was going to be all about. And so Bill and I became friends. We didn't know each other before that, but we became friends. And that was 20 years ago. But it really set the formation of how we, from Harvey's perspective, and I think it's similar with Turner, we developed the visuals. We developed the answers to questions so that you all have them. We're there to help you answer those questions, but you also know what the advantages are for whatever decisions are being made and whatever questions are being asked. We provide the visuals, like I said, whether renderings, floor plans, so you can discuss program, discuss how systems are going to be improved, replaced, what the value is. Today, Bill Ball and I are high-fiving each other every time we see each other on the field. And I go back to that and remember how hard we worked to convince people that this was a smart move for Exeter. And I don't think they have one regret whatsoever. And I know Bill looks back at that time saying, you know, we did a good job selling the values of what we were trying to do with this new high school. And I know Turner has.
So if you want to be friends with Rob, you know what you have to do. So we've done 5 schools over the last 10 years or so that all required successful bond votes to be completed. And it's funny, our first one was Hampton Academy, the middle school over in Hampton. And when we first got to town, they said, listen, everything in Hampton takes 3 years to pass. That's just the way Hampton is. And we're like, come on, it can't. 3 years later, 2 years later,
2 years.
Successful bond vote. But you know, it was a lot of public outreach. One of the things we found that's the most successful thing to do is get the facts out about your project. You know, tell everybody, you know, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how much it's going to cost. Because everybody's going to say you're spending too much money, you're doing this, you're doing that. Well, if the facts are out there, they're hard to dispute. They're just the facts. And, you know, every town is different. And one thing we like to see is a building committee, local residents, because people don't want us coming in and saying, you have to do this, you have to do that. If you guys are at the market, at the ball field, or wherever locally, and somebody asks you a question about the project and you can explain why you're doing it, that's the best way to sell a project. It really is. And, you know, each city and town is going to be different. We were involved in the new Allenstown school, and Doug called me, and it passed on the first try, which for Allenstown was huge. I mean, they got 20 million in state funding, but, you know, I thought he was kidding me. When he called me, I didn't believe him. So yeah, you know, we've done Hampton, Auburn, Bow, Hopkinton. Hopkinton was kind of sold itself. They were already done. And most recently Barnstead. We're working just groundbreaking on Barnstead a few weeks ago, just starting on a new project up there. So, you know, it's about getting the word out, getting what's going on out, getting those facts out there. And you know, people can't dispute those facts.
And we're ready to community meetings, sitting down with people in the library and having discussions. When we did the expansion of Alvern High School, We actually hosted their website just for the project, for the building committee. And that got a really good message out, because at 1:30 in the morning, if you can't get to sleep, you can go online and you can look at the website and learn a little bit. But those were a couple effective ways that we were able to get the message out to the Hudson voters about their CTE program.
Well, it's funny, everybody thinks road signs, right? If you got a bond going on in town, you have to put out road signs. And Allenstown came out with, I thought it was an ingenious idea. Their school colors are green and white. Everybody that they knew was in favor of the project, they gave them some green and white ribbon and asked them to tie it to a tree, mailbox, anything in front of their house. That way, as people drove around town, they saw there was a lot of support for the school project. But the other thing, it let people that were in favor of the project, who were helping to get the bond vote passed, if you didn't have that white or green ribbon, they were going to knock on your door and just explain a little bit about the project and see if they could get you to put a green and white ribbon. And they passed on the first try. I thought that was just one of the best ideas ever.
And then also with Hampton, something we learned, because that was a 2-year process. Unfortunately, they didn't pass the first year. The second year, they actually incurred about $1 million in escalation just from, because it was a $26 million project, but waiting a year cost them $1 million. But they also, in that second year, they brought in the naysayers from the town to be part of the building committee. So then those people learned what we were doing and actually were the biggest supporters going into the second round of voting, and were able to talk to the people that weren't in favor of the project. So.
The towns with an H, they see 3 times because we're.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is gonna be number 3.
There's a lot of H towns in New York.
There are.
You guys answered my question with the long-term CIP experiment. Sounds like you're plenty of it, and that you'd be willing to help in that process.
Absolutely. Yep.
So we can jump to 8.
Okay, so this is it. This is on pricing, right? And we've got your proposal, cost and pricing, and you've broken it down really well. We appreciate it, but there's 2 that stood out that we wanted to question. For the most part, they're all pretty much in line with everybody else's proposals, except for these 2, labor internal and subcontracted labors that seem to be a bit high. And I want to know, can you explain why that is?
Can I be totally honest?
Absolutely.
All right. We approach this as a feasibility study. Okay? If we are, typically we get asked for a design build fee or a construction management fee, which we didn't clearly understand in the RFP, so we just focused on the feasibility side. Our construction management fee is going to be substantially less than anything you see here. Okay, this was markup on subcontractor work, just to cover insurances and bonding if required, and procurement and productivity risk. I really wish that we clearly understood that you were looking for a design build fee, because you're probably in that 3% range. And I'll tell you how we go about creating our fee, just so you get a better feel for that. We look at what it takes for us to renovate a school. In this case, it would be times 3. But we look at what we need to commit in terms of labor. We're just talking labor. We're not talking about anything else. And we add up our project management time, our superintendent's time, any layout engineering time, and we look at the raw labor total. And we look at that raw labor, and we look to get a return on that labor. That's all we offer you. That's all we can offer you. I mean, we're going to take the risk. We're going to be responsible for the GMP. But reality is, we're people type of organization. This process is a people process. So we look to get a return on that labor. And when we look at that, return is based on, when we convert that to a percentage, it's based on the value of the job. But we're not just kind of testing the wind and saying, oh, let's try 3.5%. We have a scientific method for coming to a design construction management fee, or a design build fee in this case. And that, we weren't clear on that, what you were asking for. And I'm telling you that design build fee is not represented here. We typically get asked for a design build fee, what your change order fee might be, cost of a bond, and pre-construction. And we kind of filled that in with our feasibility study fees, which is going to be primarily the Turner Group doing a lot of the field work and design and looking at what has to be replaced or fixed or repaired, and we'll put pricing to that. And that's going to give you the basis of moving forward. Then we got to sit down with you and figure out, okay, if that's the end of September, like I said, I've been pushing these guys earlier.
Like I
than
would look
later.
this way and smile.
Then we got to take it from September to November, December. And collectively, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do, how much it's going to cost. We're going to set the parameters with this feasibility study. And then we move forward with this, and you're going to see all this, including the design build fee. Those markups, I wouldn't worry about them too much if you want to know the truth. They're somewhat standard, and that's not the real issue is the design build fee. If you're looking at fees, do you understand? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're trying to say, but I think what we were looking for here was if you were to subcontract and go back to electric, right? So you have a contract, and he's going to give you a price of $1,000. What are you going to mark that up as for the school, right? And that's the line item I was looking at. I'm looking at 25% markup on that. Seemed to me a little bit on the high side. Right?
Yeah, that's labor.
That's
internal.
That's labor.
Right.
Well,
Subcontractor labor too. Yeah. That's more on changes. You're going to pay what the bid is from the subcontractor. But we'd love to have.
Market.
No. We put a fee on it, that design build fee that I talked, or construction management fee. Yep. Absolutely. If there's a change that's out of scope and the subcontractor needs to put additional labor into it, then we start talking about making sure that we're getting paid for the effort.
This could be a non-out of scope project.
Right.
It won't be anything else.
Yeah.
That's right. It's going to be
That's
all
a good approach. I like that approach.
That's right. That's the right answer.
I'll take it.
Honestly, I mean, I don't want to sound rude or unappreciative.
Yeah.
I want you to know, though, that the way that we typically are looking at school bond projects is with a fee, a construction management or design build fee, and that's not represented here.
Not even close.
Not even close. And we'd be happy to walk you through that at any time. I know it's too late tonight. But understand that there's another approach that is more common to procuring construction management and design build than markups. So it's a little, I could take it another step, but I'm not gonna.
I just wanted to point out, if I can, in the fee that we carried, so, we will have architects, structural engineer, civil engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer. We'll have a team on site that'll do the assessments. We're not just going to send an architect or a structural engineer down. Everybody is kind of responsible for their own specialties. So we think that really gives you a great picture. I mean, it's easy. We could send Doug down and he could walk around and say, yeah, you got to replace everything. But that's probably not the case.
Well, that's what we want, right?
So, I think, but we do see that a lot. We do see a lot of firms just send a person, and it's easy to say to replace it. But I think, where we send down, a handful of people, everybody looking at what their specialty is, it gives you a much better quality assessment.
And you're
You look at it from either repair, replacement. I mean, you're not going to look at it and say it's got to be replaced if it can be repaired. Right?
Correct. No, absolutely not. Absolutely, for sure.
Life cycle. I mean, we got to look at a lot of different things. Everything that we give you, everything that we go over is going to be transparent and open book. So you'll see it's not just our design build fee. They're going to have design fees for schematic design development, construction documents. We'll list, it's all going to be there listed for you to see and to talk about. It'll be on the estimate side.
So let's talk about the audit, because I know we ran out of time, but we're running out of time even more. All right, so overall, the audit cost you have in here was about $78,150 for 3 schools. Right, that's a problem for the school. Because they don't have money. So is that something we could roll in if you guys were to get the award of the project, and that would be a roll into the project cost for the audit?
They're the majority, that ends of the table is the majority of the costs and we could work something out to defer cost to when construction, when you get approved.
Just to
Hold
follow.
on, Rob, if it's design and build, it's that end of the table.
So I just told you what we can do.
To be very frank, the other companies, the price is whatever we take out for a bond. There's no up cost fee to sign with the other companies that are coming forward. We don't have, like, with the school board, like, we don't have this large bank account that we can say, yes, we like everything you're saying, so we can cut a check of 75 plus, and we're gonna go with you. Like, we don't, so working with schools, how do other schools, like, I'd be interested to hear how the other districts
Again,
handle this.
I apologize that we've approached this as a feasibility study of the three schools. What we're talking about here is something completely different, and that is how do we take a project and bring it through bond vote and move forward there? If that's what we're talking about here, from our perspective anyways, on the feasibility study, that's something that we'd have to talk to the Turner Group about. We have 15,000 of that 75,000, 78,000. We'll totally be comfortable deferring that. They're going to be, we do it because we have to do a good job and convince you that we're right, so that we move this to construction, not just you, but the general public. We move this to construction, and that's when we get reimbursed. So we're happy to do that. These guys have to think about because we're really almost talking about going from zero to bond vote.
Yep.
And I'm not 100. That's not necessarily how we approach this.
Not necessarily, I don't think. I mean,
If you think it deferred,
yeah, you may be,
Feasi-
because whatever you come up with out of this feasibility study with the additional, whatever those costs are, that's what's going into the bond,
I'm good with that.
right? That's what's going in.
Right. So to answer your question, we've never been asked this question before.
There won't be any design
Honestly.
drawings or anything
So
like that required.
typically, there's no upfront.
No. We typically are paid to do these assessments as the first step in the project.
But I just have to be clear for the folks at home and for the other board members who aren't here. I get that there might not be any cost to do the assessment. And let's say we say, Harvey, we want to partner with you and Turner, and we want to move forward. And we go through everything, we do everything that kind of we touched on tonight, and it fails. What happens then? Those fees, I mean, Turner did work, Harvey did work. Who's going to be on the hook for those fees? Is it going to be us, or is that just the cost of doing business on your side? And I'm not being smart, I'm just.
No, you're just asking the question.
This is where they get paid. We're willing to take the risk from the construction side of things. So that number can come down.
We could probably work and get our number down a bit. I don't know that we could do it at no cost.
Yeah, and I'm not, this is where,
Yeah. But again, I think we could send one person out and it would cost us next to nothing, write a couple paragraphs and be done. But I don't give you the thorough assessment you're looking for. I don't think that would serve you well.
Well, I mean, so let's look at that real quick, and I know we're trying to, but looking at your proposal and what you listed as far as what you're studying, seemed to me to be overkill for what the school is actually looking for.
Okay.
Okay? It's not a lot of structural, whatever is associated with the roofs, right? Then there's boilers, there's HVAC, right? This is what they're all the same. Boilers, rooftop ventilation, roofs, windows, building envelope.
It's the whole building.
Yeah, it's not classrooms, it's not paint, it's not.
Oh, I don't think we would.
The envelope, the window is the envelope. It's kind of redundant, right? So it's all part of it.
little concerned about, I watched the video, and Principal Largy, did I get that right? Oh yeah, Dean, that's where you became famous too.
I try to stay out of the line.
I mean, leaks worry me because water travels. And so we get to uncover what that means. But it might be more than what, I'm a little concerned it's more than what,
We're concerned too.
okay. And so,
That's not a roof.
It-
Need it. Whichever company we go with, we know it's more than a roof because that water's been coming in for at least 3 years since, significantly. As Jillian mentioned earlier, the water will leak through when it's not raining now. So we know that when you get up and start looking around, there could be other things in there, and that's what we're looking for. We're not just looking for, well, we know we're non-builders. We know we need a new roof, but what else needs to be done? If there was any additional damage, what was it?
It's holistic. It's an holistic
And that is
approach,
unknown,
right?
and we understand that, and that's what we're trying to figure out. Whoever we go with, that's the kind of information we need.
And the window is not a standalone part of the
No.
exterior envelope,
No,
right? So it's all connected, right? So you got windows, you got doors, you've got pipe penetrations, you've got duct penetrations, you've got all of that working in concert with cladding systems that are then waterproofed or not waterproofed. And then there's interior portions of that assembly, right? So it's the whole, and I'm speaking to you as a registered architect as well, just in full disclosure. So I'm a registered architect, work for a construction company, go figure. But the reality is all of that needs to be looked at because it's not just the rooftop unit. It's not just the duct that's connected to that rooftop unit. It's the strap, it's the insulation, it's the diffuser, it's everything downstream and down, no pun intended, downstream and downline from that piece of equipment. So I think I would caution you to cut your assessment short.
Yeah, I don't think that's what we're doing. I just want to clarify. There's two routes we can go with this. What I mean is that the town, and we are not asking for anything for free, but what we're saying is we are asking if the ability of the assessment, we need a full assessment, can be part of the bond vote, meaning if the bond fails, you're back with us year 2, which technically for us is year 4, because we've been trying to pass a buildings project for, this is going to be the 3rd attempt. And so we can either do it one of two ways. We go to the voters for just the cost of the assessment fee because they've been voting the default budget the last few years. So we don't have any extra pennies. So we'd have to add that into the proposed budget, get that approved. That will buy another year of time and then give you the $60,000 or $70,000 to do the assessment fee. Then wait another year. So we're now looking at 2027, 2028 is the actual time frame of the voters taking the vote back up with the full cost of how we want to phase out the projects. Or the other one is you're with us till the end, meaning there's no assessment fee until the bond obviously passes for the full. I'm going to make it up. We asked for $6.9 million last year, and part of that $6.9 million would have 5.9 would have included these kind of assessments and other things that were part of it. But again, just wasn't separated. So that's where, again, that's what the town's appetite seems to be right now is, we either got to go to them and ask for just the assessment, which we don't want to do because that's time, or we've got to go to them and say, all of this is loaded into a bond. And we're picking the bond as a vehicle because we did try the first time providing a lease. The town has zero appetite at the moment for a lease program. They're not interested in that. And so we've learned our lessons there in lost years, lost some time. So now we're going back with the mechanism that the voters have said they're the most comfortable with, which is a bond. So we're not asking for free services. What we're saying is it just the way the timeline can either go out another year or 2, or it can be rolled up to once the bond gets approved by the voters for the full scope of the project, which would include the assessment.
I feel like my wife has just asked me a question that there's only one answer for, so. Gave you the answer to the question.
That's right.
I mean, Doug will probably shoot me. I mean, but I think we could probably defer that. I've got partners to answer to who are going to probably have my hide tomorrow. I mean, we've got bills to pay, so that'll put us out, I don't know how long till we could pay, this.
A few months.
Hopefully, right? Hopefully that would be ideal.
Right.
Well, if everybody, so, yeah, I think that would be our answer. We could do that. Reluctantly do that, if I can add that one word. We want to work with you guys. It sounds like a great project. We'd love to help you out. But I get where you're coming from too, right? We're all taxpayers. We all have bills to pay. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
no other questions?
I'm Novocaine.
No.
Just a Novocaine.